everyone. Welcome back to the Pathways to Happiness podcast. I hope you are doing fantastically well. My name is Nina Levon, and I am so excited about today's topic because it is something that is extremely near and dear to my heart. We are going to be talking about how to begin to deeply understand and know ourselves and our own psychology, and how when we do this, it can absolutely change and enhance our life just so significantly. Of course, we all know ourselves on a surface level. We can certainly list out our favorite books, our favorite movies, or food, or what kind of music we like. But do we really have a deep sense of self-awareness? Do we really understand the parts of ourselves that are guiding our thoughts and our behavior? I always thought of myself as an observant person, but I realized several years ago that I didn't know myself as profoundly as I thought I did. I had some self-awareness, but there were also a lot of things that I really hadn't discovered about myself or faced about myself that would have been exceedingly helpful if I did. And really, there were things that I know now that I was pretending to myself or pretending to be, which certainly wasn't making things any easier. But I really think that if we do not consciously pick apart all aspects of ourselves and what we believe to be our core beliefs and analyze them and question them from time to time, we really might be fooling ourselves. Because I think not only do we make assumptions about ourselves, we often believe ourselves to be the same person that we were 10 or 20 years ago. And we often fall prey to what I call the should syndrome, where we feel the weight of other people's expectations or even our own expectations. And we tell ourselves that we should be a specific way, or we even tell ourselves that we are a certain way, or that we believe certain things when, if we were really honest with ourselves, really don't reflect our truths anymore, if they ever did. It's just not authentic. And when we aren't real with ourselves, when we aren't authentic, it just leads to so much suffering, much more than we are aware of a lot of the times. I think it's also sometimes wrapped up into that feeling or that fear that we are just not enough in some way, which is simply never true. But when we feel that way, it can make our understanding of ourselves pretty cloudy. I definitely discovered there were a lot of things that I needed to have a heart-to-heart with myself about over the years. But over the last few years, I feel like I have finally gotten to a place where I can pretty confidently say that I know myself. I understand myself. And that's not to say that I think I'm perfect or that there aren't things that I'm still working on or that I want to improve or change. But I do understand who I am as a person, my core beliefs, my personality, my quirks, my habits, what motivates me, what types of situations make me feel overwhelmed, or on the flip side, what situations fill me with complete joy. And getting to this place has changed my life so significantly that I thought it would be a great topic to bring up today as we are approaching a new year, and it's just a great time for introspection and for preparing for fresh beginnings. And also, we are still in the middle of an incredibly surreal time, and sometimes when life becomes more stressful or more uncertain, we can unintentionally disconnect from ourselves and in turn really lose sight of some of the parts of ourselves or even our understanding of who we really are. And sometimes we've just been through so many years of getting carried away by the waves of life that we haven't had the time to know ourselves as we should. This really can happen, especially when life is busy and chaotic and relentless. But we do have to stop and think about why knowing ourselves matters, why it really does have the power to change our lives so incredibly. Firstly, it can help us create the life that we truly want and just feel like our life is more satisfying and more meaningful overall because we are able to live authentically and really know what is and what isn't in line with our core values. It also helps us to spot our unresolved emotions and keep them from dictating our actions, When we don't have self-awareness, we can sometimes be influenced by negative emotions that we aren't even aware that we have. So deep down, we might be holding on to grief or embarrassment or shame or anger, and it can influence our decisions without us realizing what is really behind it all. When we know ourselves and we are honest with ourselves, we will understand these emotions without having them influence us in ways that we wouldn't really want. It can lead us to just make better decisions for our lives overall because we are informed. We respond more effectively to our lives. We aren't just reacting out of fear or confusion. We are making conscious, thoughtful decisions. And also, it helps us to prioritize. It helps us to know what actually matters in our lives so we aren't dragged around doing things that we feel obligated to do that really don't need to be done, and instead make time for the things that we actually care about. It's amazing how we always feel like we have zero time, but when it comes down to it, there are probably a whole bunch of things that we do that genuinely are a waste of time, or things that we are just doing because we've always done them and never really questioned them. But these are things that could just simply get cut out of our life. Recently, I was feeling like that. I was feeling like I had so little time, and I hate feeling like that or living that way because it just feels so unbalanced. And I lived that way for so many years, and I really promised myself that I would never slip back into those habits. But I felt like kind of that was starting to happen. But I really wanted to figure out how I could arrange my schedule to include two specific things that I know make me feel happy and better about life. We all have those things. And for me, it's playing guitar and going to the gym. Now, for someone else, it could be gardening or, writing poetry or spending time outdoors or visiting a certain person or just having an hour to sit with a book and drink a cup of tea. But we all have these little things that we know make our life happier. And those are two big ones for me. So I wanted to find a way to make sure that I could do these things every single day because I was doing them sporadically and I was getting kind of sad about it. So I did some dissecting of my schedule and I made it happen. Now, if I hadn't been self-aware, I would have just had this longing or this frustration because I would have felt like I'm not doing the things that I wanted to be doing. But now it's something that I can identify and make happen when I am starting to have these feelings. And knowing yourself can make life so much easier because you know what is going to make your life run more smoothly and create the least amount of suffering. So, for example, I know I can't have a bag of chips in the house because I know I will eat the whole bag. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't have treats, but I am saying that I know that I do not have that kind of self-control. So if I don't want to be eating a bag of chips every day, I do not want to be having bags of chips in my house. Period. But that is something that is different for different people. I will never forget my beautiful, amazing grandmother. She used to keep a box of turtle candies in her house at all times, and every single day after dinner, she would cut one singular turtle candy in half and eat just the half. And it was fascinating to me because in my case, that would never happen. I would be thinking about that turtle candy day and night. So it's all about self-awareness. She knew herself and she knew that she could handle that. And I know myself and I know that I would be setting myself up for failure by keeping those things in the house. Another example is trying to figure out how we like to tackle daily and weekly tasks. So some people will give themselves one or two unpleasant tasks a day, the things they don't like to do, because they know they will feel overwhelmed if their whole day is filled with these things that they don't like. They know that maybe 2 or 3 of these tasks is their personal limit. Now, for me, it is the complete opposite. I like to schedule a full day of all these errands and tasks that I don't like because I don't like these types of things sprinkled throughout my day or throughout my week when I can just bang them out in one day, even if that day is miserable. That is my preference preference, and knowing that has helped me to have a life that is more pleasant because I know that that is my preference. So it's just things like that. When you know yourself, you can work around all your quirks and preferences, and overall just make your life way more enjoyable. We can plan for the things that we like and for the things that we don't like. So, how do we do this? How can we get to know ourselves more deeply and learn to kind of psychoanalyze ourselves so that we can really design our best lives? I certainly don't think there is a specific method or a specific strategy that must be followed to gain self-awareness. We can figure out how to do that, but most importantly, it's about making the commitment and decision to begin this process. Now, we are definitely going to talk about a lot of fun, different strategies that we can use, but more importantly is just making that commitment to truly studying yourself and getting to know yourself and kind of getting excited about that process. I think one of the first habits we can adopt is simply asking ourselves why when we notice something that we haven't noticed about ourselves or our behavior, or when we do something out of character, or if we do something that we're kind of conflicted about. So let's say that something happened and we had a reaction that maybe we regret, or a reaction that we kind of noticed was a little unusual. Instead of just being flooded with all these negative emotions and letting ourselves become incredibly upset about it, we can stop and think about it. We can, experience the emotion. We can't not experience the emotion. It is part of the process, but we can experience it and then identify it and then ask ourselves, why? Why am I feeling this way? And maybe there's a situation that is obvious, but we still have to get more specific. We need to pick it apart so that we can understand why we reacted the way that we did. Are we secretly anxious about the situation? Or is something bothering us that we aren't letting ourselves see? Remember, this is just information that we are keeping for ourselves so we can get really honest here. And we need to be honest, even when we feel like it's not flattering. It's better to know. And we have to make sure that we aren't judging ourselves. We are simply human beings. We are doing the best we can. We just need to understand ourselves. So start asking yourself questions and really try to peel beneath the surface. Start examining those reactions because our body holds so many life-changing insights, even when we are not consciously aware of it. So when you have these strong emotions or reactions or strong physical sensations in response to something that's going on, ask yourself, what do I need right now? What is my body telling me? Why did I react this way? What is this really connected to? Does this remind me of an unpleasant situation from my past, maybe? And really start to get to the bottom of it. So for example, let's say we pass by a mirror and we get upset by how we look. We want to ask ourselves why. We don't want to just accept that we aren't feeling great about our reflection. We want to know specifically why. Are we feeling insecure about how we look? Are we feeling worried about aging maybe? We want to get really real because once we have that understanding and that awareness, we can start to address the issue and we can start to heal these aspects of our lives. We can start to figure out a plan of conquering fears if we have them. And we can think about how resolving these negative emotions and these negative reactions can truly change our lives. The more we learn, the faster we heal and make our lives a whole lot better. So that is first, being observant, studying ourselves, sticking ourselves in a petri dish every single day and examining ourselves and make it fun. It is so fun and interesting to study human behavior, especially our own behavior, because once we understand our behavior, we can decide what we want to keep, what we want to change, what is working for us, what is not working for us, instead of simply getting carried along by those waves of life. So start asking those big questions. What do I love doing? What are my dreams? What do I want my legacy to be? How do I think other people perceive me? How do I want them to perceive me? Who is my role model? Am I fulfilling all my needs? Am I honoring my full self? Or am I ignoring important aspects of myself because I have to play a role right now? These are the types of questions that we really want to ask ourselves and spend a lot of time in introspection, contemplating. Because once we have the answers to these questions, we can start leading a life that is more in line with what we really want. We just have to figure that out. So again, that is really the first thing. But the next suggestion that I have, and this is something that I have a whole video about, is getting to know our fantasy self. And yes, we all have one. Now, what is a fantasy self? It's the idealized image we have of ourselves, who we fantasize ourselves to be, and the person really that we want other people to perceive us to be. I think it's not only highly interesting to study this aspect of our personality and to pay attention to it, but it can also give us a whole lot of clues about our authentic selves and our true needs and our true desires, especially if these things are in stark contrast to our fantasy self. Now, I'm not someone that believes that it's wrong or childish to have a fantasy self, as long as it isn't taking over or causing us to be losing touch with reality. Instead, I think it's more of an inner voice that is telling us some valuable information. It can be as simple as, I wish I could be doing this. I'm interested in this. This would make me happy, yet I never get around to pursuing this, so it remains a fantasy. Or it could be telling us something darker. It could be telling us that we feel we should be another way because for whatever reason, we don't think that our authentic self is good enough or living up to the expectations of others. If our fantasy self is built out of, I should be doing this or I should be doing that, then these are red flags that we can look for, because they are going to show us why we aren't able to accept and know our real selves right now. Because in this case, we are hiding behind this version of ourselves that we think the rest of the world wants to see. And that's never going to make us happy, because we simply can't just want to believe this or that and then it magically happens. And we can't just, with the snap of our fingers, think that we can change who we are as a person. We can change, of course, but really we only want to change if it is for us and if it serves our higher selves and not the version of ourselves that other people wish we were. So again, very interesting topic. And if you are listening to this podcast on YouTube, I will link that video in the description box below, because it's just one of those things that can be so helpful. And if you are listening to this on any other platform, you can just look up on YouTube, Nina Lavon and Fantasy Self, and it will pull right up. Another fun suggestion is to take personality tests. I am a huge believer in personality tests, and I feel that they can give us a lot of insight. Now, we have to remember with a personality test, however, that whatever we are going to get as an analysis is going to depend on putting accurate input into the questions. So we want to make sure that when we take these tests, we are answering honestly, that we're not overthinking the question and we're not answering in a way that we wish we were or that we think we should be, but really answering authentically. Now, there are two specific personality tests that I suggest the most, and the first is the Myers-Briggs personality test. You can find that at 16personalities.com. That's the one that gives you the 4 different letters, and This one for me is just so accurate. Now, I am always assessed as an ENFP. I have been this personality my entire life. I take this test like twice a year and it always gives me the same analysis. I find it to be incredibly accurate. And with this one, it's really fun because it doesn't only just tell you your personality type, it will also show you different things about your life, like what your parenting style might be like, or how you might be in a relationship, things like that, what careers might be best for you. So always take these things with a grain of salt, but a lot of times when you have put in very accurate information, you are going to get just a spot on analysis. And for me, that is definitely the case. I can read that and say, yep, this is all true. So definitely suggest that. That's at 16personalities.com. And then the other one is the 5-factor model of personality. Now, this one is really interesting because it's going to give you an even deeper analysis, because it's not only going to go through your traits, but it will also go into the different facets of the traits. So you will know specifically how you score in different areas. So for example, if you score high in neuroticism, it's going to tell you specifically which parts of neuroticism are affecting your life. So the 5-factor model is something you can also find online. Sometimes it's called the Big Five. So any of these personality tests, or you can choose a different one, but these are two that I find to be incredibly accurate, so you can do that for fun. Something else that I suggest to all of my clients, and something that I certainly do personally, is to keep a journal, because when we write things out, it helps us to understand the narrative of our mind and to safely and non-judgmentally express and process our thoughts and our feelings and our emotions. And when we do this, we can also prompt ourselves with different statements like, I am feeling this way today, and then complete the sentence. Lately, I can't stop thinking about this. These are the things that make me happy or sad, or what I want for my future. These are my strengths and weaknesses, or today I'm struggling with this. But you can kind of prompt yourself and see what comes out on paper. And after you have done this for a few days, you can read all this over and come up with some self-conclusions. Now, I say self-conclusions, but keep in mind that we always reserve the right to change and evolve, but we can see where we are at right now. And we can also list out all the habits we notice, either from our journal prompts, or we can make a separate list of habits that you tend to notice about yourself, or observations that you make about yourself. Study yourself all the time, and you can try different things and see if they work for you, and then you can take notes in that journal. You can see what works and what doesn't work. Another thing that you can try is to have a dream journal. This is something else that I do. I had a professor that made us have dream journals so we could later analyze them. But I find that it really is a window into the subconscious mind for sure. Now, I'm not a believer that we should get like a dictionary of dreams. They have these dream dictionary where it says, if you dream about this, it means this. Maybe there is some science behind that, but what I find more meaningful is to take the dream and write it out. And you need to write it out right away, because you have like 2 minutes before your brain is going to completely forget this dream. So the second you wake up, write out anything you can remember about the dream, because once you do that, you kind of make a mental picture of the dream and you can continue to think about it during the day. But you can ask yourself, what does this mean to me? What do I think this symbolizes? What is my dream trying to tell me? And this is especially important if you find that you are having either reoccurring dreams or reoccurring themes. Now, I don't have specifically a reoccurring dream per se, but I definitely have one specific reoccurring theme, which after analysis, I realize is an issue that I have not completely worked through. So my brain is trying to work through this during the nighttime, but it also needs me to work on when I am conscious. So I notice the different things in my dreams, and I notice the things that get brought up, and I think about that during the day, and I think about what I'm really struggling with, and it definitely has led to a lot of healing for me because I've been able to address many things that I wouldn't have been consciously aware of had it not come out in the dream and I wrote it out. So take this one for what it is, but if you do decide to keep a dream journal, I would love to hear how it goes for you. And keep in mind also that this is something that's going to take practice, because at first we tend to not remember our dreams, but the more we really instruct our body to remember our dreams, believe it or not, the more effectively we start to remember them. So it is a process, and within a few weeks, you will definitely notice you start to remember your dreams a lot more clearly. Another thing that brings self-awareness is simply trying to remind ourselves to stay in the present moment, to stay focused on what is going on around us right now. Because most of the time, without realizing it, we are ruminating about past mistakes. We're thinking about, these terrible things that happened to us before and worrying about them. Or we are worrying about the future, and we're thinking about all the different potential for terrible things to happen there as well. But when we can instead focus on this moment now, which is really the only moment that we have, we can gain self-awareness because we can look around and see what we're seeing now, what we are experiencing now, what we're feeling right now. Because when we're in this moment and when we are conscious of what we are experiencing in the now, we can process it a lot more clearly, and we can really notice where we are at rather than just having all these things shoved underneath a rug because we're paying attention to different areas. So mindfulness really is key here. And for some people, it comes down to just, reminding ourselves, oh, I gotta get back to the present moment. Other people need more help. They need to do things like meditate or practice yoga, or, take a daily walk where you commit to really staying in the moment and noticing the surroundings and kind of giving yourself that analysis of how you are feeling and what you are thinking about right now, and anything that might be worrying you or bothering you right now. Just bring all these things to the surface. Another thing that I think we really have to do is to give some focus to the frustrations in our lives. I know we don't want to, spend tons of time thinking about the frustrations in our life, but when we explore negative situations or feelings, these moments can really provide us with so much insight. When these frustrating circumstances or these painful emotions arise, we want to really explore them. We want to think about them and ask ourselves, what is this moment teaching me? Is this an old pattern that keeps getting brought up for some reason? Am I really directing my own life, or am I letting my fears direct me right now? Is this the life I want to be living? And if not, what can I do to change my life? And probably most importantly, we need to always ask ourselves, what makes me happy? And am I doing these things on a regular basis? And if not, we need to figure out why and how we can start to fix that. And also consider the small things. What little upgrades would help me enjoy life more? These are details that we want to have awareness of. For me, nature is a big thing. That's something that I committed long ago to spending a lot of time in nature and being outdoors as much as possible, because I know that that helps me to feel happy about life and reduce stress. But even tiny, tiny things like aesthetics, for me, aesthetics are huge, down to what kind of coffee cup that I drink out of. I remember a couple years back, I went through the cupboard and I got rid of all the coffee cups that did not bring me joy, that I didn't think were beautiful, that I didn't think would be a good start of the day. And it's something, just so tiny, but it makes a difference in my life. Why not get to know ourselves to the point that we are always surrounding ourselves with only things that make us happy, that we find aesthetically pleasing, that bring us joy, or that make us feel inspired? That is the true benefit of really having that self-awareness. It's really time to give ourselves the gift of going beyond knowing our favorite books or TV shows or, you know, favorite musical artists. We need to really develop that deep sense of self-awareness, because when we do so, think of how much easier it is to design a life that works. Think about how much we know. Let's say we are a parent. Think about how much you know your child. You know everything about them. You know what they like to do, you know what time of day they get cranky, you know what is going to motivate them and what's going to demotivate them. Picture if you had all this information about yourself. Think about when it's for a child, how you can really direct their life in a positive way when you know their preferences and their quirks and their personality. And if we could have that same self-knowledge, we can apply that to our lives and just continuously upgrade and make our lives work more smoothly and be more peaceful and more interesting and exciting, because we also can streamline the tasks we have in our life. We can get rid of the things that don't matter and focus on what matters, but we can't do that until we figure out what is meaningful to us and what isn't. So today is your invitation to start this psychological deep dive into yourself. It is just a huge gift that you can give yourself that's just going to keep on giving forever, because it's a process that never really ends, because we continuously change and evolve in our life. So we have to continuously get to know who we are at the different phases of our life. So that's my invitation to you to start on this process. Again, stick yourself in that little petri dish and start this examination and have fun with it. And I would love to know, where do you think you are in this process? Do you feel that you are a self-aware person, or do you feel like there are aspects of yourself that you would like to get to know a little bit more? Definitely leave me a comment. I find all your comments to be so interesting and insightful, and I enjoy having each and every one of you as part of this amazing community that we have developed here. Also, please remember to continue to send in those topic requests and any questions you might have. I read through them all, and if I haven't gotten to them yet, they are on a big list for me to get through. And I find it helpful to know what you want to hear about, because it helps me direct both the podcast and the YouTube channel, because I am here to serve you and support you in the best ways possible. So as always, I want to thank you so much for listening today. I hope the rest of your day is absolutely amazing, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Take care, guys.